trade war is bad for both sides. So there is a real political issue. There are some parts of the country that feel they've lost out and people are not adjusting. But the country as a whole is benefiting, U.S. country as a whole is benefiting from this trade relationship. That's the situation we're in right now. First, teaching at the graduate school of the Chinese Academy of Social Science, that was a great experience. But for me, the big thing in that 1986 trip was I got to travel, I think it was about 6 weeks, and I traveled by local bus through rural parts of Sichuan and Yunnan, visited some pretty remote, pretty poor areas. I also visited big cities. I visited Shenzhen in 1986 when it was not a big city yet. And I visited some factories also around Shanghai, visited some factories, and they were using very old technology and they were not connected to the world economy at all. And then 15 years later, I was able to visit factories in Guangdong and also around Shanghai, and it was amazing what the transformation was. So I think for me, China's opening up to foreign trade and foreign investment, that really played a big role in China's starting to grow quickly and pull people out of poverty. So those dialogues between the U.S. and China, they started at a high level under President Bush when Hank Paulson was Secretary of the Treasury. And they continued under President Obama when Tim Geithner was Secretary of the Treasury. When Tim Geithner started, which is when I joined Treasury and started representing Treasury in Beijing, that was the time of the global financial crisis. So it was a pretty scary moment. So in that first formal dialogue under Geithner, always a topic was trade issues between China and the U.S. and trying to negotiate more openness on the Chinese part. But to me, the most important thing, especially in the first dialogue, was this issue of the global crisis and the need to coordinate macroeconomic policies. So I remember the meeting where on the U.S. side, you had Ben Bernanke, Tim Geithner, Larry Summers, Christina Romer. So some of the best known economists in the United States were all in the Obama administration. On the Chinese side, you had Wang Qishan, Zhou Xiaochuan, Yi Gang. I think Lou Jiwei was there. He wasn't finance minister, but I think he was head of CIC at the time. Anyway, you had top economists from the two sides having a very frank discussion of what they were going to do. The U.S. had a program, a financial relief program for banks. We had a pretty large fiscal stimulus. China had a very large fiscal stimulus, very large monetary stimulus. So I came away thinking this kind of macroeconomic coordination, this was really the most important thing in these meetings, not the detailed negotiation about, is China going to open up this market or China going to open up that market? If you look at what was achieved, we avoided a Great Depression and we had some significant bounce back of the world economy. I'm really impressed at the people-to-people exchange between China and the U.S. Right now we have about 400,000 Chinese students in the United States, and I think this is great. We don't have as many U.S. students in China, but we have a growing number of U.S. students in China, and we have programs. So I think that intellectual exchange is really important. Right now there is this trade tension between the U.S. and China, and the media, I think, exaggerates that to some extent. What I find interesting is I talk to different types of academics. If you talk to people in the hard sciences, for example, or health sciences, there's fantastic cooperation between China and the United States. And they don't even notice this so-called political tension between China and the U.S. So you have our health scientists working with Chinese health scientists on the latest flu vaccine and anti-cancer research. You just have all kinds of scientific cooperation that's just rising, and there's a lot of enthusiasm for that kind of cooperation. So that kind of people-to-people exchange, that makes me optimistic about the future. That's very important for our future relationships and for developing new technologies and approaches to controlling disease. I mean, the benefits of that people-to-people are enormous. I think those kind of cooperations, that's really the foundation of the relationship.